Hi guys, I'm EVM and welcome back to the channel. Now this is a bit of a more personal video, this one. I get a lot of questions, as you can imagine, about everything, but quite a few are about myself or the channel or my family, things like that. So I thought I would answer one of them, well, one of the regular comments in this video, and that is my car history. I'm so professional, I'm eating my tea whilst making a video. And I got stuck to my tooth. Wow. Right, so this is my personal car history, and I'd like you to put in the comments below what you think is the best and the worst out of everything I'm about to show you. I don't mean best in terms of capability, just the one that you like the most. Which is the best and worst out of the cars I'm about to show you? Right, let's go back to the start then. This is the only car I do not have a proper picture of, as in the specific one I owned. But this is it. It used to be my mum and dad's for 7 or 8 years, and it was so worthless as a part exchange they actually gave it to me. And here she is. It is a Metro City X. Now that is one awesome beast of a machine. And the City X wasn't just a normal Metro. The X part of it basically meant that it came with different alloy wheels and, instead of a coin slot, a digital clock. For a lot of people watching this, it's proper old school because it's manual choke, only 4 gears, I think 49 brake horsepower out of its 1 litre engine. And the engine in that, the A series engine, dated back to the 60s. I have to say though, it's your first car, isn't it? So you always look fondly on it, and it was awesome at handbrake turns. Done on private roads, of course. And funnily enough, that is the car I owned when I met Lorna, my now wife, of course. So the handbrake turns clearly work. As I said, my mum and dad had that about, I think it was 7 or 8 years. And I had it 3 months before someone decided they wanted it instead and stole it whilst I was at uni from outside the house I was living in. They basically decided to drive it around a rugby pitch for a while and then reverse it into a tree. They had it 7 years, I had it 3 months, and it got nicked. Next, now this is what I call my first proper car. And when I say proper car, I mean a car that I didn't have to put a litre of oil in every month. It was the awesome Fiesta 1.1 LX. It was the first car I could literally say, well, where do you want to go? Where in the country? The Metro, not so much. It wasn't really great for long journeys. So yes, the Fiesta 1.1 LX. Now, of course, I had learnt my lesson and had a massive disc lock on the steering wheel, so it didn't get stolen again like the Metro. Of course, that didn't stop them from breaking into the car twice to steal the stereo. Which, of course, with me being a poor university student, was worth almost as much as the car itself. Unfortunately, the damage done getting into the car far outweighed any of the stereo itself. So, yeah, I didn't really have much luck at uni, I suppose. Fast forward a couple of years, because, finished uni, got a job and thought, I want a car again. And I had a full budget of £650. I actually found this awesome beast in the local papers, which is something I don't think anybody does these days. It was a 1.4, so I'm going up in the world, and it was a Nissan Sunny 1.4 LX again, saloon. Now I think it was about, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old when I got it for 650 quid. The engine was faultless, it never used a drop of oil, it had central locking, an electric sunroof, electric windows all round. It was awesome. For 650 quid, that was a billy bargain. I had that for about 18 months and it never put a foot wrong. I even sold it for £450 18 months after I paid £650 for it. So yeah, take that, depreciation. Yep, the Japanese sure knew how to make their vehicles. Now this isn't my car, but basically by this point, me and my wife, well, my now wife, me and Lorna basically, were living together, and she bought a brand new Corsa Octavia. It had the brilliant 1 litre 12 valve engine in it, and I have to say I absolutely hated this thing. It was a new car, it had air conditioning, things like that, but the ride felt like someone had just put nails through a sponge And it didn't make sense. It was awful. The interior was terrible. It had a billion buttons inside. It was, as I said, the 1 litre 12 valve engine, and it was gutless beyond belief. I think a hairdryer had more performance. So yeah, I hated that one, if I'm honest. But I have to say, in the 7-ish years that we owned it from new, the only thing that had to be replaced beyond maintenance, you know, wear and tear stuff, was I think some gear linkages. So yeah, I guess I can't fault the reliability of this awful machine, but it wasn't really mine. You know, that was more her car, and of course I had the Sunny. But I didn't have the Sunny for long, because then I went to what is my first hot hatch, my first proper, well, quick car by you know, realistic standards. It had passive rear steering, 6 gears, which was quite rare at the time, and did 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds, which by today's standard is still quick. And I love this machine. It was the Peugeot 306 GTI 6, and that, yeah, I do have fond memories of this, because, as I said, it's the first proper hot hatch. It was called GTI 6 because it had 6 gears. Again, it was quite rare at the time, for a normal car anyway. And because it was never designed with 6 gears in mind, the 306, the gearbox was bigger, and it basically stuck into, I think it was the wheel arch. So you could turn more one way than the other, because they had to lock the steering off to stop it hitting the gearbox. So its turning circle was appalling. But other than that, it handled better than most modern cars do today. A 2 litre normally aspirated engine, no fancy turbos. And for me, that was the last decent car Peugeot ever made. Speaking of Peugeot, their dealers are horrific. That's another reason why I've never had another one. It basically had a misfire. And my local garage said, look, you're going to have to take it into Peugeot, because we don't know what it is, and we don't have a machine to plug it into. Remember, this is quite a few years ago now. I took it to Peugeot, and they said, well, you need a new ECU. I went, okay, well, how much is a new ECU? It's £950, please, sir. Right, oh, that's rotten luck, is that one. What if it's not the ECU? Oh, well, if it's not the ECU, and unfortunately, because it's programmed to the car, we can't take it back. But we would look favourably on any future work that you got done with us. Right, so you want me to spend £950 on what you think is correct. At this stage, of course, I promptly removed the car from Peugeot, took it to an ECU specialist, and within 10, maybe 15 minutes of just driving in the car and then swapping a few leads around, he said, oh, well, it's an injector. You just got a faulty injector. So I went to Peugeot, bought a £45 injector, and the car was fine. So a £45 part, and they wanted me to spend £950. That's why I don't trust main dealers to do any proper diagnostic work. They're just not interested, or crap. Ah yes, my next one. This is the only car I truly miss to this day. The one that I wish I still owned. When I got it, it was, I think, 21 years old. And for me, this is a future classic, if not a classic already. It is the immense, there's no other word for it, Corrado VR6. And I have to say, I thought it looked awesome. I loved these when growing up, and I still do now. The 2.9 V6 was brilliant. Still quick by today's standards. I think, again, sub 7 seconds to 60. And it was my first V6. I paid £2.5 for that and sold it for £4.5 a few years later. That's not because the appreciated in value. It's because I spent so much money restoring it almost. You know, half of the engine was replaced, if you like, at least a lot of the components anyway. Had a full respray, and this was a rare one. It wasn't a Storm, but it had heated leather Recaro seats, which was an optional extra and very rare, and air conditioning, which was a dealer fit option on Corrados. There was literally, I think it was in 2 figures. You know, a few dozen Corrados ever came with air conditioning. It was the most unreliable car I'd ever owned. It was an old car, so I guess it's to be expected. But it was the one with the most personality. It's the one I'll look back on fondly. When it stopped working, and it never let us down, as in stranded us or broke down. Well, with the exception of when the brake caliper seized on Christmas Day, and we had to be recovered all the way to her mum and dad's on Christmas Day. And that was fun, and of course my fault. So yes, that for me is one of the best cars that Volkswagen have ever made in terms of fun and looks and performance, and just, oh, it was brilliant. Aha! Now this is a bit of a practical thing. Like today, I did a lot of miles back then, and I couldn't keep piling them on the immensely reliable Corrado, so I got another car. And me and Harry used to be professional car detailers, and this is partly why I bought one, what I did, what I'm about to show you. Not just to take the miles off the Corrado, but because I needed something with a decent rear space to stick all the car detailing stuff in. Anyway, this was it. It was a Kangoo van, and you can probably tell from the colour, it was an ex-British Gas one. 1.5 diesel. So yes, it saved me a lot of money on the 2.9 V6 Corrado in fuel terms, but it also meant we could do the detailing properly. So yeah, not the most exciting vehicle in the world, but it did its job. Aha! Now at this point, of course, practicality sets in, and you think, well, you know, we were married by this stage, and thinking, you know, of the family, or rather, of starting a family. And for that, you need something a little bit more practical than a two-seater Kangoo van and a 2.9 V6 Corrado. So I sold the van and the Corrado, which I was gutted about, but you know, you have to be realistic in life, and bought my first ever brand new car, and that was the Skoda Octavia VRS. It was the CR TDI, and although it wasn't a car with the most personality, I think the best way of putting it, again, faultless. It was quick. I think it was 170-80 brake horsepower. Again, the CR diesel version. And the boot was immense. So with a newborn baby and, you know, young child, it just swallowed up all the crap that you need with kids. So I have to say that was a very, very capable car. Very good, very comfortable. And of course, my first ever brand new vehicle. Finally persuaded the missus to ditch her Corsa, and of course with the family thing happening, we changed that for a Ford Focus C-Max. So that became effectively my wife's car, and I had the Octavia for my work. 3.5 years I had that Octavia, and then by that point, big car, and I wanted a small hot hatch again. I was missing that kind of, you know, B-road blaster sort of thing. So I stepped down a notch in terms of size, stuck with Skoda, and got this, what I thought was a very good looking car at the time, the Skoda VRS Mark II Estate. And that was all black, everything was black, even the roof rails, the lights, I think it looked really, really good. And I liked that. And the Estate version of the Fabia, massive, massive boot again. So almost as practical as the Octavia. But yeah, that the 1.4 engine in it with the turbo and supercharger. The 7-speed DSG gearbox, you know, the automatic double clutch, which I have to say, 0 to 60, that was probably one of the quickest petrol cars I've ever owned, 0 to 60, just because of the DSG gearbox. It was very, very fast off the line. Bit of a bland, crappy interior, if I'm honest, but yeah, I enjoyed that. Aha, my first premium mark now, and my first straight 6 engine. I really enjoyed this thing. BMW 330i Tourer, in fact, so is the Estate basically, and that had the full cream, I think it was called lemon interior, and it was a world apart from the Fabia VRS, even though it was an older car at the time. Got about 25 miles per gallon on average out of the 3-litre straight 6. One of the last best non-turboed engines BMW did for me. You could do 60 in that, 70 in that, or even 110 in that, and you wouldn't know you were going any quicker. It was such a beautiful motorway car. Very comfortable, very quick, 240 odd brake horsepower, I think. That was the time where I kind of thought, I get it now. I get it why people buy something like a BMW over a Ford Focus, for example. You can see where the extra money goes, the build, the feel of it, the materials. And that led me, because of the fuel bills, to my first electric vehicle, which was the 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, of course, which is still on the top of the YouTube page to this day. I had that, I think we had it 18 months, something like that, or just over, you know, between a year and 18 months. And then of course someone took it to Nissan to service it, pissed on the car, and then well, if you haven't seen it, I won't go into it, but basically someone pissed on the car in front of the dash cam. I did a video about it, and Nissan replaced the car for what we have today. Well, they didn't replace it, they bought it back off me. Oh, I got a message. The car which we still have to this day, the 30 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, that is just about to take over to 50,000 miles, and we've had it about 3.5 years. It doesn't sound much, 24 to 30 in kilowatt hours, I mean, but that extra, I would say 20 miles of range makes a huge difference on a long journey. For example, in the 24, we had to stop 4, sometimes 5 times going to my mum and dad. I could do it in 2 stops in this, just for the sake of that extra 20 odd miles. Moved house, had no money, bit of time went on, and then saved up enough to get another little hot hatch. And this is what we went for. It was the Polo GTI. Forgetting what mark it was, no doubt somebody will correct me or tell me in the comments. 66 plate, so the previous generation to what's out now. Interior was a bit bland, although I did like the steering wheel, and the seats were a bit odd, but it was a really good car. Got it at a really good price, brand new, and we had that 3 months before some scroats from Bradford broke into the house and nicked the keys, nicked the car whilst we were asleep upstairs. So that was a lovely time. I waited for the car, I think 4 or 5 months to be delivered, and then owned it 3 months before it got stolen. And then found 6 months later to the day in Bradford with its rear window smashed in, and I think they've done 12,000 miles in 6 months on it. So God knows what that were doing, obviously crime things. So yeah, I did like that, but because we couldn't wait for another new anything, and we didn't want another fast Volkswagen Audi type car, because they get targeted basically in Yorkshire. So that put us off the VAG brand completely. And then we ended up what we still have to this day, the Mini Cooper S. It was just a year old. We had to get a used one because we couldn't wait for anyone for the manufacturer to make it. It's just as quick, probably maybe a little bit quicker than the Polo, but immense fun. The interior is full of personality, solid. I guess the Volkswagen was, but it's just a car which is fun, great personality, which is a big thing. I think it's not just another Euro box. That's the only way I can really describe it. It looks great. You can tweak it as much as you want with official Mini stuff. You know, I've got the John Cooper Works exhaust on it now, for example, and bigger than most people think. The Mini is a big car these days. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. The Nissan Leaf 30, and the Mini Cooper S. The Leaf is so cheap to use. That's the workhorse. This is the fun one. Now at this point, as I said earlier, I'd like you to put in the comments below which one you would say is your favourite. Not necessarily the best car or the quickest. Which one would you pick? For me, it's the Corrado VR6. Which is the worst out of all that? And leave the Kangoo van out of it, because that was there for a specific reason. So forgetting the Kangoo van, which is the worst car out of that lot? Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you for watching. I'll be honest, I've got very little time to do stuff at the moment, which is why I've done this type of video now. It's easier for me to do than others. And of course I have to prepare for Ford flying me out to LA in a couple of weeks. Just saying. Okay, thank you for watching, guys, as usual, and I'll see you soon.